Kia ora te whānau, my name is Julie Rokotakala and I'm speaking today to the passage from John chapter 10, verses 1 to 10. Jesus is the gate and the gate is open. This passage holds one of the most beloved images that we have of Jesus, that of the Good Shepherd, but it is such a saccharine and sanitized image of Jesus, pristine, clean white clothes and white sheep draped around his neck. Real shepherding in the Middle East in Jesus' day was a far cry from those sanitized images. They had a really hard life. They cared for their flocks in hostile environments. They faced all kinds of dangers and difficulties, the same dangers and difficulties that the flock faced. And they were just as vulnerable to heat in the day, to cold at night, to human and animal predators. It's thought that where there were sheepfolds, that the shepherd may have slept across the entryway to keep watch for wild animals and thieves getting in, and to keep the sheep safe and prevent them from escaping. And so the shepherds may literally have become the gates. Now, traditionally, we see gates as barriers, as part of the fence, the divider between who is in and who's out. And most of us have automatically thought of ourselves as those who are in. Later on in this passage, we will hear that the religious leaders who thought that they were in, that they were part of the sheep of Israel, were actually out because they didn't know the voice of their shepherd. So there's huge challenge in there for us. Do we know the voice of our shepherd? But back to this gate. What if we see it less as a one-way turnstile and more as an opening way, an access way, a hole in the wall, a space that leads to new things, a passageway? And Jesus, the gate, who opens up new pastures for the sheep, abundant pasture, abundant life. Jesus is the gate. This is what he says of himself. He's the one who brings release for us, who opens the way to freedom and to wholeness. Freedom from the confines of our in-out divides, freedom from the thieves and the bandits that try to come in and steal away or whisper us away from the voice of the shepherd, freedom from the voices of strangers who want our allegiance and trust, freedom to move away from the limited feed that the pen offers us into new and rich pasture. And if all that sounds a bit scary, then it's not surprising. If we're honest, we all love the comfort of the familiar and well-defined pens that we are a part of. But sometimes we love them so much that we ourselves become gatekeepers, judging who can and can't come in and what happens inside that pen. But you know, that pen was only meant to be temporary, a shelter in the dark. Some of us, however, have made it our permanent home. And we've heard the call to come in, but we've resisted the call to go out into the abundant life that Jesus came to give us. The key to overcoming the fear of venturing through that gate is following the shepherd's voice and letting him lead us. This passage says he calls his own sheep by name and he leads them out. And when he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. We can trust Jesus because he is where we are. He doesn't call us anywhere that he hasn't already gone himself. And then he stays with us in that new pasture. In many ways, this passage tells us about our own lives. Life is not all lush pasture and safe grazing. It's full of threats, the valleys of death, thieves and bandits who break in to steal us away from the good things of God. Things like feelings of unworthiness, persistent doubt and false beliefs, and strange voices that rival the voice of Jesus in our own lives and call us to follow them instead. Voices of addiction and abuse, greed, laziness and self-satisfaction. But there is also so much abundance on offer. Our cups can run over. There's the companionship of the flock, the voice of the shepherd leading us in and then out. Protection, provision, pasture, restoration and rest. In this Eastertide, when we dwell in the afterglow of the resurrection, we look for all the places where abundant life pushes through the threats and barriers of our lives to create space for newness. And in this strange new place that we find ourselves as church and as Christians in this virus-affected world, we've been primed to be insular and isolated. But as church, we must resist the urge to stay safe in the pens that we've always known. We have to press forward through the open gate that Jesus is. We have to listen for the voice of Jesus and let him lead us out as his flock into new pastures. We may not know what those look like yet, but we can trust him, and we can trust that those new pastures will be open and spacious and good.